Ever catch yourself wrapped in two thick blankets, thermostat cranked to the max, fuzzy socks hugging your feet, yet still grumbling about a chill in your cozy, centrally heated home? Picture this moment frozen in time. Now imagine trying to explain your shivers to a Native American elder from 600 years ago, someone who just slept through a bone-chilling night in a teepee on a wind-swept prairie, with no electricity, no insulated parka, and definitely no heated mattress pad. He's calm, maybe even a bit bemused by your distress, while you're one cold draft away from calling it an emergency. So, how did they do it? Winter's brutal cold wasn't a rare event for them. It was their reality every year for centuries. Native Americans didn't just survive these harsh conditions, they thrived, sleeping peacefully on frozen ground as snow swirled outside. Stick with me, because their final secret for mastering the cold might make you question whether we're truly the advanced ones in this survival story. Let's debunk a common myth right off the bat. When you hear tent, you probably picture that flimsy nylon contraption from a summer camping trip, the kind that leaks if you sneeze too hard. So, you might imagine Native Americans huddled in misery, teeth chattering like a percussion section, counting down to sunrise. That's nowhere near the truth. Their teepees were no ordinary tents. They were architectural marvels, engineered with precision for survival. These tall, comical shelters were built with sturdy wooden poles, often sourced from pine or cedar, and draped in layers of buffalo hides. These hides weren't just thrown on, they were meticulously sewn together, creating a barrier thick enough to block fierce prairie winds, yet breathable enough to prevent moisture buildup. End of section 4. This wasn't a tent. It was a portable fortress, a testament to human ingenuity against nature's toughest elements. The brilliance didn't stop at the structure. At the heart of the teepee, they'd kindle a small, controlled fire. Not a roaring bonfire that burned the place down, but a modest flame designed to keep things snug. The smoke didn't choke them out. It rose gracefully through a cleverly designed vent at the top, adjustable with flaps to account for shifting wind directions. They were practically airflow architects, mastering ventilation long before modern HVAC systems. The heat from the fire would rise, swirl along the sloping walls, and maintain an interior temperature 15 to 25 degrees Fahrenheit, warmer than the subzero world outside, even in the depths of a brutal winter. Anthropologist Reginald Laubin, who lived among Plains tribes and co-authored the Indian teepee, its history, construction, and use with his wife Gladys, documented this firsthand. Their research showed teepees were climate-controlled havens, warm in winter, cool in summer, and remarkably dry during storms. There was a catch, of course. Positioning yourself in the teepee required strategy. Get too close to the fire, and you'd risk roasting your backside into a charcoal briquette. Too far, and you'd be shivering, rethinking your life choices. It was a delicate dance of balance, but one they mastered. In essence, they created the original open-plan living space. Natural ventilation, log-powered radiant heating, and multi-season functionality. And here's the wild part. They could pack up this entire setup, poles, hides and all, and relocate it across the plains in under an hour. So, when someone dismisses their lifestyle with, "They just lived in tents," set them straight. No way. They lived in portable, eco-engineered homes that outsmarted nature without a single power tool, online tutorial, or tech mogul's blueprint. Forget your high-tech thermal leggings or fleece-lined hoodies that lose their fluff after one season. These folks draped themselves in buffalo hides, so robust they could probably deflect an arrow. Deer, elk, rabbit, whatever they hunted became their wardrobe. And they didn't just toss on a single layer and call it good. They layered like survival depended on it, because it did. They'd wrap themselves in multiple hides, creating a cocoon of warmth that rivaled any modern sleeping bag. At night, they didn't just sleep under these hides. They burrowed inside them, rolling up like a human burrito, with only a sliver of their face exposed for breathing. That was their nightly routine, a far cry from our fumbling with electric blankets and thermostat settings. And here's another stroke of genius: body heat. Families didn't spread out across the teepee for personal space or comfort. They packed in tight, like pieces in a human jigsaw puzzle. Why? Simple physics. The more bodies huddled together, the more warmth they generated and shared. Forget your childhood sleepovers with separate bunk beds and a handheld gaming console. This was a communal pile of 6 or 7 people, maybe a dog and occasionally a stray goat, all nestled in a heap of elk or buffalo furs, carefully avoiding a rogue cold toe to the back. This wasn't considered odd. It was a deliberate strategy, a testament to their collective approach to survival. The cold wasn't something to fear. It was a challenge they met as a unit. Every hide, every shared breath, every strategic snuggle was part of a well-orchestrated plan. Survival wasn't a solo mission. It was a family operation, a shared warmth network stronger than any modern heater. So, next time you're annoyed about splitting a blanket with someone, pause and reflect. These people turned body heat into a communal superpower, keeping entire families toasty in conditions that would send most of us running for cover. Their approach wasn't just about physical tools. It was about unity, resourcefulness, and a deep understanding of how to work together to beat the elements. We've covered the teepee's architectural brilliance and their fur-layered sleep system, but their winter survival toolkit had another ace: heated stones. So while we'd reach for a plug-in heater or a hot water bottle, they looked at their surroundings and thought, fire and rocks, let's make magic. Before bedtime, they'd carefully select smooth river rocks, ones they knew wouldn't crack or explode under intense heat, and place them in the fire. Once sufficiently heated, they'd wrap these stones in bark, thick cloth, or animal hide, and tuck them into bedding, near their feet, or even nestled under their layers. These weren't random pebbles from the ground. They were chosen with precision, a knowledge honed over generations. The result? A prehistoric version of a hot water bottle that radiated steady, gentle warmth for hours, ensuring they didn't just fall asleep warm, but stayed that way through the night. Some tribes took this further, strategically placing heated stones around the teepee's interior edges to create a low, consistent heat source that prevented the space from freezing over. This wasn't some caveman hack. It was thermal engineering at its finest. The next morning, they'd reheat those same stones, sometimes tucking them into clothing pouches to provide portable warmth during travel, like carrying a personal sun in their pocket. Compare that to our modern panic during a 3-hour power outage, when we're piling on sweaters, raiding the closet for extra blankets, and texting friends for a spare charger. Centuries ago, Someone was curled up in a teepee, warmed by a glowing rock, thriving with nothing but nature, knowledge, and a well-placed piece of granite. Reginald and Gladys Laubin's work with Plains tribes confirms that heated stones were a cornerstone of winter survival, a simple yet profound example of how ingenuity trumped technology. Now, let's talk about the wind, because winter wind doesn't care about your cozy setup. It's a relentless intruder, sneaking through any gap to chill your bones. But Native Americans were weatherproofing experts, far ahead of their time. Their first line of defense? Snow walls. In the depths of winter, many Plains tribes piled snow around the base of their teepees, not for decoration, but as a natural barrier against cold air. This was like medieval cork, sealing off the lower edges where wind loved to creep in. Cold air sinks, and without this shield, it would sliver across the floor like an icy phantom, turning their warm haven into a freezer. By packing snow strategically, they created an insulation buffer that kept the interior livable. Their second defense was equally clever: hide skirts. Some tribes tied extra strips of animal hide around the entire base of the teepee, forming a 360-degree seal. These leather fringes weren't just stylish. They hugged the ground, blocking drafts and reinforcing the shelter against the prairie's ferocious winds. And make no mistake, these weren't gentle breezes. We're talking about relentless, bone-chilling gusts tearing across open plains, with no trees or hills to break their force, hitting like a frozen slap to the face. This wasn't a luxury, it was a calculated defense against nature's coldest assaults. This weatherproofing wasn't seen as extra effort, it was just part of life. Spot a snowstorm on the horizon? You'd grab your hands, a makeshift shovel, or whatever was available, and start piling snow like you're building a castle moat. Some tribes went further, digging shallow trenches around the teepee's base to channel wind away or drain melting snow, ensuring their shelter stayed dry and warm. This wasn't mere survival, it was environmental design, a harmonious dance with the elements. These techniques, snow walls, hide skirts, precise fire placement, formed a cohesive system that kept them safe and warm through storms that would have modern folks frantically booking a hotel room. If you think this sounds like overkill for a tent, consider the accounts of E. Adamson Hobel, who studied the Cheyenne and described how they packed snow around their teepees, secured hide skirts, and even rotated their shelters to deflect harsh prairie winds. These weren't random acts. They were deliberate, time-tested strategies woven into daily life. Teepees weren't flimsy fabric shelters flapping helplessly in the wind. They were fully equipped winter bunkers, built with nature's materials and zero reliance on electricity. When the wind came knocking, they didn't just answer. They stood firm, unbothered. But the true secret to their mastery over winter wasn't just their tools or techniques. It was their mindset. They didn't view winter as an enemy to be fought or a burden to curse. They respected it, studied it, and adapted their entire way of life to harmonize with it. Unlike us, who battle nature with maxed-out heaters and weather app complaints, Native American tribes worked with nature, not against it. For many, mobility was key. If a campsite became too exposed or wind-battered, they didn't sit there complaining. They packed up and moved. Imagine telling your neighbors in 2025, "It's getting chilly here. Let's relocate the entire block a few miles south." you'd be met with blank stares or outright laughter. For them, it was just another day, a practical decision rooted in survival. This mobility wasn't haphazard. They read the landscape like a living map, choosing new sites based on wind patterns, proximity to resources, or natural shelters like tree lines. Everything, where they slept, what they ate, how they built their shelters, was guided by a single question: how do we align with this season, not fight it? That's the difference. They didn't wait for a rescue team or blame their tools for failing. They were the solution, reading the sky, the land, and the seasons like a real-time forecast. While we panic over a single power outage, wrapping ourselves in bathrobes, microwaving socks, and Googling how to survive a blackout, they slept calmly in -20 degrees Fahrenheit weather because they understood their environment inside and out. Researcher Fikret Berkes, who studied indigenous ecological knowledge systems, emphasizes that their survival wasn't just about practical skills. It was about a shared cultural ethos of living with the land, not dominating it. Their resilience came from generational wisdom, rooted in respect, humility, and adaptation. Children didn't grow up fearing the cold. They were taught to read wind patterns, select the best furs, and find dry wood buried under snow. This knowledge wasn't scribbled in notebooks or stored in the cloud. It was lived, passed down through stories, practice, and observation until it became second nature. Every elder was a teacher, every task a lesson, every winter a chance to refine their craft. We tend to fixate on the physical tools, the teepees, the buffalo robes, the fire pits, but we overlook the deeper truth. Their survival was as much about mindset as it was about materials. It was about patience, planning, and a profound respect for nature's rhythms. So, next time you're grumbling about a chilly room, bundled in your high-tech fleece, imagine this: someone 600 years ago striking a fire by hand, wrapping themselves in elk hide, tucking a heated stone into their bedding, and sealing their teepee with snow and leather. They slept fine. No panic, no complaints, just a quiet confidence born of listening to the land. Here's a perspective we often miss. They didn't just hide from winter. They moved through it, hunted in it, worked in it, with more finesse than most of us manage on a slush-covered sidewalk. How? Let's start with snowshoes. Walking through deep snow is like wading through quicksand. It's exhausting and futile. But Native Americans crafted snowshoes, lightweight webbed frames made from bent wood and rawhide lacing that distributed their weight, letting them glide across the snow's surface. These weren't one-size-fits-all. Tribes tailored their designs to their environment. In the dense forests of the Northeast, longer, narrower snowshoes aided maneuverability through brush. On the open plains or tundra, shorter, rounder designs worked better for wide-open terrain. The 1909 Museum Journal and Modern Studies on Indigenous Winter Ecologies highlight how these tools were refined over generations, with designs like the Ontario beaver tail or Alaska's narrow frames, showcasing a deep understanding of terrain and climate. Meanwhile, your neighbor still slips on their icy driveway every winter. Then there were sleds and toboggans, especially among Arctic and subarctic tribes like the Cree, Inuit, and Chippewa. These weren't toys for a quick hill slide. They were workhorses, crafted from birch or pine, designed to haul firewood, food, hunted game, and tools through deep snow. Often pulled by dogs or people, they were streamlined and flexible, built to glide without getting bogged down. Their clothing was equally purposeful. Forget your designer parka that frays after one season. They wore buffalo hide outer layers, fur-lined moccasins, and multi-layered garments tailored for warmth, wind resistance, and mobility. Every stitch was intentional, every layer a shield against the cold. Their travel routes were another stroke of brilliance. Trails weren't randomly chosen. They were carefully mapped, memorized, and passed down through generations, like living GPS systems. Some were so efficient, they laid the groundwork for colonial roads and even modern highways. This wasn't luck. It was ancestral knowledge in action. Follow the windbreak, hug the tree line, avoid that ridge after a heavy snow. No smartphones, no satellite maps, just pure, hard-earned wisdom. While we struggled to find our car under a light dusting of snow, they were hauling elk meat across frozen valleys in handmade footwear, pulling sleds through blizzards without missing a step. Native American winter survival wasn't just remarkable. It was a masterclass in blending art, science, and respect for the land. Their tools, from snowshoes to teepees, were refined over centuries through trial, error, and observation. Not with high-tech materials, but with unparalleled skill. They didn't fight winter. They moved with it, without snowplows, heated car seats, or social media rants about icy sidewalks. So, here's the question. Could you survive a single night in a teepee? No phone, no electric heater, no streaming service, just you, a pile of hides, a hot rock or two, and maybe a cousin for warmth. Would you be stacking snow walls and tending a fire like a seasoned pro, or curled up in a corner, cursing your thin socks? Here's your challenge, and don't back out. Drop a comment below with what you'd bring to survive one winter night in a teepee. No modern gadgets allowed. Think real, old-school survival gear. A bundle of furs, a stash of hot stones, a reliable cousin to share body heat. Get creative, but keep it honest. While most of us would probably last 3 hours before begging for a hotel with central heating, these people slept peacefully through blizzards. No complaints. Maybe it's time we stopped underestimating their ingenuity and started tapping into our own resilience. What's in your survival pack? If this story made you rethink your relationship with winter, or feel a spark of awe for our ancestors' toughness, give it a like. Share it with that friend who whines when the office AC is too chilly. And follow for more tales of how Native Americans outsmarted the cold in ways that make our modern comforts look like child's play.